Coordinate geometry. At this point, it's a very fancy name to say if I give you some coordinates of certain points, most likely the vertices, you have to tell me whether a polygon is a parallelogram or a square or a rectangle or a rhombus. So, and the information that you're going to need is slope formula. The techniques that you're going to need is slope formula or distance formula to prove the sides are congruent. So let's look at how we can organize it better. There are two steps. You can check the congruency of the sides, and you have to check the congruency of the diagonals. And so let's look at the first one. Is a parallelogram. Opposite sides are congruent and diagonals are not congruent, meaning these two sides are congruent, these two opposite sides are congruent, but the diagonals are not congruent. So when you have a situation like that, you use most likely distance formula, and then you will find out that that it fits this criteria. You have a parallelogram. Rectangle, opposite sides are congruent, so these two opposite sides are congruent, and the diagonals are congruent. Then you have a rectangle. Rhombus, all four sides are congruent, but the diagonals are not congruent. Whereas square is all four sides are congruent, and the diagonals are also congruent. So that's the difference. Let's look at an example here. This is example number 2. I have 4 points, something like that. I don't know if that's the correct shape, but that gives me a rough idea. So then I just need to calculate the length of all 4 sides to determine what kind of parallelogram I have. So let's do that. So QR equals -7 plus 5. x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, right? So that should be root 13. And let's do ST next, which is 1 minus 4 squared plus -9 minus -7, which gives me plus 7. Double negative makes a positive. And I should have 13.2. Excuse me. And now I'm going to look at RS. RS is 4 minus 1 squared plus -7 minus -5, which is plus 5. And that should give me, ooh, this is looking promising, doesn't it? So RS is root 13.2, and QT is 1 minus -2, which is positive, plus -9 minus -7, which is plus 7 squared. And that's also 13. So I know now all 4 sides are congruent. It can only be 2 out of the 4 possibilities. So it can either be a square or it could be a rhombus. Not squares, it's square. See if I can erase that. Nope. Okay. So, but in order to differentiate a square from a rhombus, I have to calculate the diagonal as well, right? So let me use a different color. So the diagonals are here. So if I have to calculate the diagonal, as you can tell from the graph, RT, and you use distance formula again, y minus 1 squared plus -5 minus -9 is plus 9. So I should have 16. Is this 16? Yeah, so root 16, and I should have 4 here. And then if I calculate the QS, I should have negative 2 minus 4 squared plus minus 7 plus 7 squared. So this is 0, but that's 6. That's root 36. So that comes out to be 6. So the diagonals are not congruent. Therefore, the only possibility for that is a rhombus. So that's my final conclusion. Okay, so literally you have to calculate all 4 sides. And if you're lucky enough to find all 4 sides being congruent, then you have 2 choices, square or rhombus. If your 4 sides are not congruent, you have 2 pairs of, like if you do problem number 1, you will find that 2 pairs of opposite sides are congruent. Then you either have a parallelogram or rectangle. And then you have to proceed to calculate the diagonals. If the diagonals are congruent, you have a rectangle. If not, you have a parallelogram. So the answer key is online. I'm not going to bore you with so many distance formulas, but this is a great place to practice some of this. Okay,